In the bus on the way to a game this week, I started to read Peak, the new book by Ericsson. I saw it on sale for Black Friday, and so I got it on Kindle for $1.99. So I thought I'd give it a chance. And I've only read the first chapter, so I'm reserving judgment on the entire book. I don't yet have a recommendation for it because I've only read one chapter. But in that first chapter, he used an analogy that, while I wouldn't say it was wrong, I'm not sure it's correct either, at least in the way that we're talking about it. So at the end of the chapter, he talks about, let's say you want to climb a mountain. And so, the peak is a long way off, and how are you going to climb that mountain? You could just start out on one of the paths that you see and start to climb the mountain, or you could hire a guide who knows the best possible way to get to the top so that you can climb the mountain in the most efficient and effective way possible. And so obviously, the name of the book is Peak, and a lot of it is, it's basically essentially a book about him talking how deliberate practice is the most efficient and effective way to develop expertise. So he's essentially saying that, the deliberate practice is the guide, and that's the best way. But I don't know if that's a great analogy, because while the guide would be the best way to get to the top, the easiest way to get to the top, the most efficient way to get to the top for that one single day, that doesn't mean that you're going to learn how to climb the mountain properly. If I don't rock climb, I don't mountain climb, but I'm using that as the example. So let's say I go to a mountain and I decide that I want to climb to the top. If I hire a guide, the guide presumably is going to make all the decisions on that trip to make sure that I get to the top as quickly and as safely as possible. And just because he's making those decisions and he's showing me the way doesn't mean that I'm learning what he already knows. So he, through his experience and expertise, has learned the best route or the easiest route for a beginner climber. The one that's going to enable me to get to the top without having any skills to begin with. But that doesn't mean that through this one trail, I'm going to develop the skills to be able to go on a different trail. It doesn't mean that I'm going to learn so the next time I return to the mountain, I'll be able to get to the top on myself. Maybe there's some tricky pass or something that he knows how to get through, but if I'm there on my own, maybe I don't remember, how to get through that pass, or I don't know the skills that it takes, or I didn't develop the skills that it takes because, the guide did that process. Maybe the guide can judge whether or not, a pass is too icy or too rocky, and as a novice, I wouldn't know the difference. So there's a lot of things that this guide knows because presumably he's been mountain climbing for his entire life, and he's been on this mountain before, and he's picked up all this information, and he's probably tried all of the different trails. He's probably experienced some learning on his own without being told exactly what to do, and therefore he has this expertise. So again, if my simple goal is to climb the mountain one time, to get to the top as safely as possible, as quickly as possible, get back down the mountain without hurting myself, by all means, using a guide is the best approach. But if I'm really trying to learn how to climb a mountain, just getting to the top of one peak on the first day might not be the best way to learn how to climb mountains or for the future. That may show me one way, and now maybe I get stuck only using this one way. But I'm not learning how to go up any other paths. I'm not learning how, maybe to boulder. I'm not learning how, to go through ice. Whatever it is that you would have to learn to be able to competently climb mountains. If I'm only doing one path and the guide is making all those decisions, that's all I'm learning is what I can take from following the guide's directions in one specific path. But that may not enable me to climb a different path or climb on a different mountain. And so just because I can climb this one path on this one mountain with a guide says nothing of my ability to climb a different mountain or a different path. And so when we're talking about the difference between performance and learning, that's basically performance. Is I'm trying to do something as well as possible one time. I'm trying to perform well. I'm trying to accomplish that singular goal. And the best way to accomplish that singular goal would be to get the guide and get to the top of the mountain, take my selfie, get to the bottom, post it on Instagram, and become famous. But if I really want to learn how to climb a mountain, learning would require that I could then take those skills, whatever I learned on that one day, and be able to climb up a different path the next time or be able to climb a different mountain. And if I can't take what I learned from that guide and transfer it to a different environment, it's hard to say that I really learned, because I'm not retaining my learning and I'm not able to transfer, adapt my learning from one situation to the next. So I might be able to retain the lessons and climb up that same path the next time by myself. So then I can say that I retained that learning, and so now my learning is specific to one path. But if I can't go to a different mountain, if I can't go to a different path, then I'm not able to adapt my learning, I'm not able to transfer, so I haven't really fully learned how to climb mountains. I've only learned how to climb one mountain or one mountain trail, and that's a difference. So if I'm practicing layups, and I'm told the best way to shoot a layup is to jump off my inside foot, finish with my outside hand, hand behind the ball, at a perfect 45-degree angle, preferably if I'm only dribbling at about 75% of speed, and I master that one layup, I can probably retain that from, practice to practice, from game to game. But if I'm forced to shoot a layup in a different way because the defense is in my way, so now I have to Euro step, or maybe I have to go under the basket for a reverse layup, or maybe I jump off my right foot, maybe I finish with my inside hand. These are all layups, but I'm not able to transfer that learning from the first layup to these different layups. And so I can say that I can make a single kind of layup in a single situation at a single speed, but I haven't truly learned how to make layups. And to me, to be able to learn to make those layups, I need some experimentation. I need to try different things. I need probably to learn from failure. What's going to serve me the best? Where am I going to get stuck? And if a guide is doing all the learning for me, and telling me exactly what to do in exactly, this situation, I may not be learning the lessons of when do I use an outside hand, when do I use an inside hand, when do I jump off my left foot, when do I jump off my right foot, when do I stop on 2 feet, when do I go for a reverse layup, when do I Euro step. And consequently, you see players who learn moves in one situation, typically unopposed, and typically based on a coach's direction. Okay, now I want you to do a Euro step. So they dribble in, they do a Euro step. But then they get in a game, and now they Euro step, but they Euro step right into a defensive player because that wasn't the appropriate move to use at the appropriate time. So they may have mastered a move in one situation, i.e. without defense, but they're unable to transfer that move into a game situation where there is defense. And so while Ericsson is correct that using a guide would be the efficient and effective way to climb to the top of the mountain safely, get your picture and go home, I'm not sure that this analogy of getting to the mountain as efficiently as possible is the best way to learn something that you can transfer to different situations. Now, the title of his chapter 2 is adaptability, so maybe he discusses this, and I will come back and be able to change my opinion. But just based on this one analogy, it's not that what he's saying is necessarily wrong. I just kind of think that it's a poor analogy that we want everything to be efficient in our learning. I think learning needs to be somewhat inefficient so that we can learn a variety of different things. And then we're able to adapt those to different situations and different environments. And because if we can adapt to different environments or different situations, then we learned a very limited skill that's only useful in a very limited situation. And to me, that's not really learning. That's more, in this case, especially with climbing the mountain, it'd be more performance-based. So if I want to show off that I've learned or I've improved, I'm going to limit and do a very narrow thing so that I can improve immediately and perform. But if I want to really learn something, I can transfer it to a different environment, transfer it to different situations. That's going to take time, and it's going to take mistakes and experience and learning from the experience. And ultimately, that's probably what the guide has. The guide has learned from different experiences. He's climbed different trails, so he's seen different things. He understands, even if he's never climbed this specific trail, he can figure it out because he's probably climbed similar trails in his life, and he's learned from those experiences. He's learned from more experienced climbers than himself, his essentially coaches, but he's also been able to learn on his own, try things on his own, probably make mistakes on his own, and ultimately that's why he's an expert and why he's a guide. And so I think that's the learning process is if we really want to learn how to be a mountain climber, we want to go through the process that the guide went through to become a mountain climber, as opposed to simply following a guide in one instance in the most efficient way possible.